Hey everyone, BilboCraft here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be doing a ranking of all 9 Spider-Man movies. I'm counting the Raimi series, the web series, the MCU Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, and I'm also including Venom, because even though Spider-Man is not technically in the Venom universe, I want to at least put Venom, because I consider a Spider-Man movie because it does have Spider-Man characters, and it has one of the famous Spider-Man villains of all time. And I really do enjoy that movie, so I want to put it into this category. I'm going to rank them from worst to best. I do like all of these movies for a majority of reasons, and then there's some of them where I'm like, ooh, they could have been better, and then there's some of them where I'm just like, they are really, really bad, but there might be 1 or 2 things that I really, really like about the movie. So without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 9 is Spider-Man 3. Now, I grew up watching the Tobey Maguire series, and I loved it. I loved all of the actors, I loved the storylines that they do in it, and I loved all the action sequences. But why this is number 9 on my list is just because there's a lot of cons and there's a lot of pros. As you see here, I've listed on one side pros and a lot of bit of cons. For my pros, I like the suit. I like the red and blue one. It isn't my favorite live action suit, like the designs and stuff, like where the silver webbing just popping up and not being really attached to the suit is one of my biggest complaints. The eyes are a lot narrower, and I really like that because that's one of the things that makes Spider-Man so cool is his eyes. But I love the black suit. When the black suit was shown on the screen, I like the different webbing pattern. I like the suit to actually look like it was an alien. I like the silver and yellow eyes that would reflect depending on what color he was at. And I really like the spider logo on the front and back, how it looked different and how it was always changing throughout the movie. Peter and Aunt May's connection and their storyline, all the scenes that they're in, I really sold that because at the end of the day, what I love seeing more than just Peter interacting with his friends or with Mary Jane or any other sort of hero is when he's talking with Aunt May. They have some of the best dialogue and some of the best scenes in the Raimi series, and for me that really captured it for me because at the end of the day, Peter is always doing this for Aunt May. He's doing this to protect her, and he's honoring what he should have done with Uncle Ben before he was murdered. And out of this movie, out of all the villains that were in this movie, I really enjoyed Sandman when he gets first shown, and you get to see him, like, you get to see what he's doing, like, why he's robbing places, why he's stealing things. It's to help his sick little daughter. And then when he turns into Sandman, and then you get to see him emerge from the pile of sand, and he's struggling to, like, make fingers and to grab his daughter's necklace. That scene is really emotional because you see a man struggling to get something that his daughter has given him. And for me, if I were in a film school and I was watching that scene and my teacher wanted me to learn from it, that'd be a perfect way to start up a film school and to do a learning for how to make a movie like that. Now, as for the cons, number 1 is emo Peter. That whole scene where he thinks he's cool. I get what the scene is trying to imply, that Peter's doing things that he thinks is cool, but for a person who is a big Spider-Man fan, and for people that are not a Spider-Man fan, and this is their first Spider-Man movie or Venom storyline, for them, they're going to take this as a joke, as many people did, and they're also going to think it's kind of corny and silly. Also, the second thing, Sony took something that they really wanted to do, and when they were talking with Sam Raimi while he was making this movie, and all 3 of these movies, he makes it his own story, he makes it his own movie, but Sony was like, no, you're going to do it this way, we're going to cram Venom, we're going to cram this Harry Osborn, Green Goblin storyline, we're going to spit all these things in here, but you gotta take it slow, Sony. You can't just cram a bunch of stuff in it. The third thing is there's too many villains in this movie. You have Green Goblin, you have Sandman, and you have Venom. And Venom, overall, he was just small, itty-bitty-itty. The guy that they got to play Eddie Brock was a silly, corny little guy. There was nothing where I thought he was threatening or he was menacing. I didn't relate to his character at all. And as for him and Peter, there was just too much crying in this movie. I get it. Tobey Maguire, I love him as an actor, and I've seen him in other movies that he has played that don't involve Spider-Man. And in the first 2 Spider-Man movies, when I see him crying, I relate to that. But for some reason in this movie, every time I see him cry, I just laugh at it. That whole scene where where MJ's breaking up with him on the bridge, I just can't help to laugh at every single time. It's funny seeing him make that face and just hearing the crying. I'm sorry, it's just funny to me. So it doesn't come off sad to me. It just comes off really, really funny. And the Uncle Ben twist, they didn't have to. Sony was like, you know what? We mentioned Uncle Ben in these other 2 movies. What's the way that we could do it again in this movie? Let's, instead of making the guy that killed Uncle Ben in the first movie, let's retcon that. Let's make it Sandman, so we have another reason for Peter wanting to fight Sandman. It just, for me, that was really, really bad. So overall, I give this out a 4 out of 10 as my ranking, and at number 9, it's on my spot. Coming up at number 8 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Much like Spider-Man 3, Sony just wanted to cram pack and pack this movie up with too many storylines and too many villains. For the pros, I really like the ending. I really like the ending, where we finally get to see Peter decide, does he want to be Spider-Man or does he want to be with Gwen Stacy? Even though he promised Gwen's father in the last movie that he would stay away from him. But at the very end, you could see them both coming together and planning their future. Peter's thinking about moving to Europe with her, and he's also thinking of becoming a European Spider-Man, maybe even Spider-UK. And then the action sequences when he's fighting Electro at the Oscorp facility plant, to the fight with him and Harry at the clock tower. I really like that. And the ending where you see him take a leap of absence as Spider-Man for a year and then see him come back to face Rhino, that was really great. I'll come back to the whole Rhino thing. The action sequences from beginning to end, they are amazing. From the very beginning, when he's chasing Rhino in the truck, that was great. Seeing that montage of him taking off the suit to going into the grocery store to get medicine, that was all really good. The first scene with Electro, that was really well done. But overall, this movie comes out really, really bad as well. This movie was hyped up way too much, and then when everyone saw it, it just digressed from everyone's expectation. Me personally, because we were gonna finally get what happened to Peter's parents and why they had to leave. We were gonna get Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker together. We were gonna see Norman Osborn. We were gonna get the Sinister Six. But once again, Sony just wanted to cram this movie too much, and it overall just came as a big fat mess. There were too many storylines between Aunt May becoming a nurse and Gwen Stacy going to England and then dying. We got to see Harry Osborn taking over Oscorp, but for him to be sick, we were even getting the tease of Black Cat being in the movie, but overall, it just came too much of a mess. One of my biggest complaints about this movie is the suits. Electro's suit at the very end, kind of goofy, more goofy than his comic book, with the gigantic star for her face. Rhino's mech suit was really well done, I really like that. Harry Osborn's Green Goblin, even though it was menacing, and I actually believe that he was turning into a legit goblin, the suit he was wearing, though, just looked goofy. It looked goofy than the Raimi version. And Spider-Man's suit just plain looked goofy. I didn't like it. A lot of people love this suit. For me, personally, from the web shooters to the gigantic eyes to the symbol, to me, I just didn't really like this suit. This movie, a 5 out of 5 out of 10, and for me, it fits at number 8 on my list. Number 7 is Venom. Now, I really, really did enjoy this movie. And if you go back and watch my reactions, you can see how very excited I was for this movie. When Sony said they were going to do a movie without Spider-Man, but was going to have Venom as the main character, I was really excited because they picked a perfect actor to play this. Tom Hardy killed this both as Eddie Brock and the character Venom. Now, originally this movie was going to be rated R, and I was ready to see Venom rip off limbs, eat people's heads off, and just do so many massacre and Venom-like things from the comics. But when Sony said there may be a way for MCU Spider-Man and Sony's Venom to collide one day in the future, they made it PG-13 instead. And even though that's sad not to see Venom go full Venom mode like he did in the comics, it still was well-deserved. I think this movie overall did what a Venom movie or a Venom story should be done. Tom Hardy killed it, both as Eddie Brock, from his reporting skills to how Tom Hardy was saying his lines in the improv scenes, and that scene where he crawled in the lobster tank. Well done, Tom Hardy. You could have not sold that scene any better. The VFX were some of the best I've seen in a superhero movie at all. From Venom when he transforms, to the way the tongue moves, from all the symbiotes that interact with all the characters. That motorcycle scene, great. The SWAT scene, amazing. The surprises, like the surprise cameos by Stan Lee to J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut, so many. And then that end credit scene, I knew Carnage was going to make an appearance, but I didn't know it was going to be done like that. And Venom finally got the on-screen that he deserved, alright? He looked menacing, he looked terrifying, and he also looked really, really good. With the gigantic eyes, the goofy long tongue, and the super muscular body, all really well done. Now, the cons that I have with this movie are the villain. Carlton Drake is a very interesting villain, and he kind of reminded me of a younger Norman Osborn, but with some swag to it. But my biggest complaint was we were gonna get to see we were gonna see the storyline from Venom, which was the Protector storyline, and we were gonna get to see different versions of the symbiotes, but we didn't get to see Scream, we didn't get to see Rage or any of the other symbiotes like in action, like I thought we were gonna get. All we got was Riot, and throughout the movie, he's going from Hong Kong all the way to San Francisco, but it takes him 6 months to get there. And then for the last 20 minutes, we get to see this big fight battle, which was really cool, but overall, Riot just didn't really... It felt like he was missing from the movie up until the very end. And that also goes with the final battle as well. I love that final battle, but I just wish it was a bit longer like some of the other Spider-Man endings. Those final battles are, they are what truly matter to me, because the final battle has to look really, really good. Because it's a battle between the hero and the villain, and in this one... I didn't feel like there was no stakes. Like, if I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10, and it ranks at number 7 on my list. Coming up at number 6 is The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, in 2012, Sony announced that they were going to do a reboot for Spider-Man. It had been 5 years after the last one in Spider-Man 3 within the Raimi series, so Sony was going to do a new take on Spider-Man, a more darker take, some of the most comic book accurate, from Gwen Stacy to the nerdiness of Peter Parker, and the web shooters instead of the organic webbing. I had a really fun time with this. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, I really liked him very much. He felt like a Spider-Man. He was making all kinds of quips. His suit, we got to see him make, and it looked really real. From the webbing being sewed into the suit, to the mask, to the web shooter, seeing him design them, and we got the Spider-Man geekiness. We got to see a new take on him, that he was a skateboarder. Gwen Stacy was in there with Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield's behind-the-scene chemistry. That was really brilliant, and they played that well on screen together. To me, when I was watching this movie, I felt like it was more of the Ultimate Comics, which is my favorite comics of the Spider-Man character. And we got to see him play around with so many different characters, and all the action scenes were really well done. And for me, it looked the most realistic Spider-Man at the time. Now, the problems I have with this is that they did the Uncle Ben death again. Yes, it's been 5 years, but I'm pretty sure me and the majority of other Spider-Man fans have forgot that Uncle Ben dies. We don't need to see it again. Even though it was heartbreaking to see Uncle Ben die again, and I related to that still, I'm like, they did it again. We could have gone in this movie knowing that, oh, Peter lives with Aunt May, and he lives in Queens. Okay, then we get to see him get the spider bite. That would have been okay, but Uncle Ben's already dead. Then we find out that Peter's parents were scientists, okay? That would have been up the door, instead of doing the Uncle Ben route. Real cool Peter. I didn't like that he was, kind of like a troublemaker, and Andrew Garfield was more of a Spider-Man than a Peter Parker. So that's kind of the thing I have a problem with. And then the spider bite was a little bit different. It didn't happen when he was on a school field trip. He kind of went to Oscorp, broke into a secret lab, and then got bit by the spider. So, other than that, I give this movie an 8 out of 7 out of 10, and this ranks at number 6 on my ranking. Okay, we've reached the top 5, and it is Spider-Man. Spider-Man debuted in 2002 with Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe, and this was the very first Spider-Man movie that I ever saw. I was walking in through the living room, and my stepbrother and my stepsister were in there, and they were going to watch a movie, and they asked my mom if I could watch it, because at the time, I was 4 years old, and they were about my age right now, and they were both like, hey, is it okay if Isaac can watch this? And she was like, yeah, go on. I came in there, and the first thing I saw was the DVD menu, and I was just seeing this guy swing around, and I thought, who is this guy? And so my step-siblings, they showed me this movie. And this is what got me into comics. This is what got me to loving Spider-Man. And even though this is the first Spider-Man movie that I ever saw, I still like a few things, and then there's also a few things where I'm like, they could have been better. Because as I was watching it, at the time, I didn't know much about Spider-Man, but as I grew up and I keep watching it, and I found out more about Spider-Man, the more I was like, okay, there's a lot of things that they changed, and some things are good, and then some are just really bad. So, this is one of the best comic book movies of all time, in my opinion. From the origin story, where they showed Uncle Ben's death to the time he got bit by a spider, the reality of getting bullied by kids at a high school, to financial aid when Peter and Aunt May are struggling to keep up bills and paying up things to impress girls. That's all relatable. You get J.K. Simmons playing one of the greatest Spider-Man characters of all time, J. Jonah Jameson. And J.K. Simmons, he killed that character in all 3 Spider-Man movies. He killed it. And every single actor that plays in this movie, they kill all the performances. From Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker to Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Norman Osborn. They all killed it. The cast and crew is amazing, and this is one of the best comic book soundtracks of all time. Now, my problems with the movie is the organic webbing. And I'm just thinking, how the heck does he form all that webbing inside of his arms? Like, where does all that webbing come from? And I got it. The studio thought, well, people and audience members that don't know this character, they'll relate to it, and they'll understand it. Oh, he just makes the webbing in his body. No. We get where he gets bit by a spider, he gets super speed, he gets super strength, he gets the spider sense, he gets all these powers, but how the heck does he make the webbing? That's just the problem. He's already smart, let him make the web shooters. We even saw a concept of that. The suit, as I said earlier, my biggest complaint is the silver webbing. It just pops out, literally. It doesn't look like it's sewed into that. And I'm thinking, if he's so poor to not get a car, how the heck does he have enough money to make spandex and to sew this together? Like, that's just my biggest thing. Kristen Dunst's Mary Jane, she did a great job performing the character, but every scene she's in, whether she's in trouble or not, she's always screaming. And to me, that's very annoying. That doesn't show that Mary Jane has conquered anything. And even though the cast and crew is brilliant in this movie and for the rest of the series, the time they were announced to play these characters, they were either in their 30s or 40s, and they're portraying characters that are supposed to be in high school or supposed to be young adults. And for me, that just didn't fit well, because you had Tobey Maguire, who was 27 at the time, playing a 15-year-old kid. And he didn't look like a 15-year-old kid. Now, as I said before, Andrew Garfield was the perfect Spider-Man, but not the perfect Peter Parker. Tobey Maguire was the perfect Peter Parker, but not the perfect Spider-Man, because he wasn't quipping enough. He wasn't making enough jokes, and the way that he was moving sometimes and the way he was fighting just didn't seem like what a Spider-Man would have done. But overall, I give this a 9.5 out of 10, and it ranks at number 5 on my list. Number 4 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, when Sony said we're going to do a Miles Morales origin story, I finally said yes, this is perfect. And then they said it was going to be animated, and I was still like, this is great, that's perfect. It's made by Sony. I love all the Sony animation movies. This is great. And this movie overall, I'm gonna get all the cons out of the way. There are none. You can argue with me all you want, but for me, every time I watch this movie, I don't have a problem with it. Now, many people are gonna be like, if it's 10 out of 10 and there's no problems with the movie, why is it number 4? Number 4, it's the animation. I love the animation. It's some of the best I've ever seen in an animated movie of all time. It's made to look not like an animated movie that you take your kids to see, but it's made to look like an animated comic book movie. You see all the air bubbles pop up. You can see all the action bubbles pop up. You see it all. It looks like you're living in a comic book world. The cast and crew are amazing. They play these characters so well, and you get to see individual Spider-Men and women be portrayed by so many great actors. The comic book accuracy is some of the best I've ever seen in a comic book movie of all time. You not only get to see Miles Morales' origin story, you get to see Gwen Stacy's origin story, you get to see Spider-Man Noir, you get to see 2 different Spider-Man being played by Peter Parker. You get to see Spider-Pig for the first time on screen. It's amazing. The storytelling, from Miles having to struggle with his family, to Peter B. Parker trying to make up for his mistakes with Mary Jane in his universe. The story overall was really good. And there's so many Easter eggs that every time I was watching, I was looking for different Easter eggs. It was really, really good. So I give this a 10 out of 10, and it ranks at number 4. But number 3 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I really love this movie. And at the time, before I made this ranking, this so far was my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. It did everything that I ever wanted from a Spider-Man movie. Tom Holland killed this. He murdered this movie. He is both the Spider-Man and the Peter Parker. He plays it so well. He's quipping when he's Peter Parker. He's quipping when he's Spider-Man. The way he moves to his webbing and to the swinging and all the Spider-Man action scenes were great. This MCU version of Spider-Man, it captured what it's like to be a teenager, being a superhero, and looking up to these big idols of Avenger-level characters. Michael Keaton's Vulture was very menacing, and I felt really threatened and very scared every time he was on screen, whether he was Adrian Toomes or whether he was wearing the Vulture suit. And they turned one of the most goofiest Spider-Man characters, to me, from this bald-headed old guy who just could fly into this menacing family guy who is a blue-collar villain. The high school point of view captured it really good. They picked all these young actors who, at the time, had just been maybe 4 or 5 years out of high school, but they played it so well because they were in those positions not too long after this movie came. That rubble scene, when Tom Holland is in that rubble scene, you get to see him emote so well. The way he captures and embodies Peter Parker's terrifiedness and the way he's feeling, where he thinks he can lift it up, but then just to cry and think of giving up. But then once he sees his reflection and he thinks about what Tony said, it all goes away and he starts to lift that rubble. It was straight out of the comics, and it's something I've always wanted to see on live action, and I got it. RDJ being not only a mentor to Tom Holland behind the scenes, but also being Peter Parker's mentor, played it so well. They set up so many things for the MCU, and they set up so many things for Spider-Man when he was going to interact with more characters, and when he was going to interact with more people in his movie. The cast and crew overall was great. Now, the only problem I have really with this movie is the second trailer spoiled the whole thing for me, because that fairy scene, I was looking really forward to it, and then the trailer just spoiled it. They didn't spoil the ending of Adrian Toomes being Liz Allen's dad, but overall, the movie just kind of gets spoiled a little bit. But overall, I rank this 10 out of 10, and it fits at number 3 on my ranking. Number 2, Spider-Man 2. This is bigger and better than the first Spider-Man movie. And usually when you come out with a sequel, you got to bring your A game. You can't do the same thing you did. If you're going to do the same thing you did before, you got to do something different. You got to elevate. In this movie, they didn't elevate. They skyrocketed. They did something completely different. They did the Spider-Man No More storyline. The storytelling, this by far is the closest thing that we've gotten to Peter being at his lowest. Financial aid. His apartment sucks. He can't get the girl. He's losing jobs. He's seeing flashbacks of Uncle Ben. The world is asking him to be Spider-Man. And his mentor, Dr. Otto Octavius, has then just become a supervillain. And he's struggling with all these things, and then he loses his powers. And he thinks, I don't have to be Spider-Man. I can be who I want. But after he loses his powers and he embraces himself being Peter Parker, he then realizes the world actually does need him. Jameson was wrong about Spider-Man. He still doesn't get the girl. He's in more financial issues. His grades are getting up, but at the end of the day, Peter's not getting anything from it. The comic book accuracy with the villains and the storytelling was on point. The train sequence. Not only is the best fight scene in any Spider-Man movie, but it's the best action scene in any action movie. You can disagree with me all you want, but for me, it was the best, because it's something that we've never seen done before. And it's the best Jesus cross we've ever seen in a movie. Sorry. And at a young age, I didn't quite understand the cake scene where he's in his apartment and he's just looking out, and then his neighbor next door is like, do you want a piece of chocolate cake? In that moment, Peter has nothing else to lose. In that movie, he's in his lowest. Because after saving that little kid from the fire, but to realize there were 2 more people stuck upstairs and they burned to death, he's thinking, am I not supposed to have what I want, what I need? And for one of his neighbors just to be, out of kindness, say, do you just want a piece of cake? Peter accepts it, because it's the thing he's getting at the moment. Now, the problem that I have with the movie overall is the sense of him losing his powers. I don't ever remember reading a Spider-Man comic where Peter was thinking about all the sadness and all the lowest moments in his years of being Peter Parker and Spider-Man, to then realize, oh, my emotions control my powers. No, that's not what happens. And once again, Sony was like, the audience, they'll understand. No, they don't hint at that at all. That scene where he goes to the doctor's just like, your dream is saying maybe you don't need to be Spider-Man. That's the thing. the movie doesn't explain his powers or connected to his emotions. And I rank it at number 2 on my list. Without further ado, my number 1 Spider-Man movie of all time is Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, going to this movie, I thought, is this really going to top Spider-Man Homecoming for me? Is this going to top Spider-Man 2 for me? And ladies and gentlemen, it did. And here's why. Peter's drama. Now, like in Spider-Man 2, we got to see Spider-Man and Peter Parker at their lowest when they were struggling with so many things. Here, Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man is dealing with the same things, but they're more relatable and they're more understanding. Peter has come back from the dead 5 years after Infinity War, and once he pops up 5 years later, he battles with the Avengers and he beats Thanos, but to see his mentor die in front of him, the same way he died in him before, is just sad and it's heartbreaking. To see him struggling to get with the girl that he really, really likes, to the moment he's ripped away from his vacation to help save the world with Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., to teaming up with Mysterio, but to realize that he's going to get backstabbed later, and for the whole world asking him, are you going to be the next version of Iron Man? Are you going to be the next hero? Are you going to be the Avenger? And the pressure is just poured onto Peter, and he can't think straight. Tom Holland and Zendaya's relationship on and off screen is brilliant. Whether they're dating in real life or not, it's believable. And for me, this is what a real romance between Peter Parker and Mary Jane should be, or what any Spider-Man relationship should be like. From them struggling to get together and coming to terms with their feelings, and then for it to be, for them coming together at the very end, was believable. That whole scene where they're on the bridge and they're talking about the necklace and confessing their feelings to one another, it's believable. Every time you see Peter and MJ together in this movie, it's believable. The relationship, seeing them struggle to come to with the terms with their feelings, is believable. And that's what makes a good romance story. That's what makes a good comic book relationship. Mysterio, you finally got my favorite Spider-Man villain on the big screen. The cape, the gauntlets, and that fishbowl helmet. Oh my gosh. Marvel is just taking all these goofy Spider-Man characters and they're turning them from goofy characters into terrifying, realistic villains. And you feel for them. The storytelling in this movie is great, of him becoming his own hero instead of being out of the shadow of Tony Stark and Iron Man. The VFX and the visuals are the best I've ever seen in any Spider-Man movie. From the elementals to that final scene with him and Mysterio, the action sequences are crazy. From the elemental battles to that bridge sequence. When they were filming the movies, they went to Prague, they went to Venice, and they went to London. They filmed in all these locations, and some of it they had to do behind the scenes in Atlanta, but other than that, they looked believable, and it was real, and that's what makes a good movie. When you go to film on location, and it's in a comic book movie, it makes you think that really is there. They really did film there. But that illusion scene was so insane, and it was something I've always wanted to see on the big screen. It was great. It could have never been better. That ending. The big reveal that Mysterio reveals to the whole world that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Great. Never saw it coming. Never in my days would I think J.K. Simmons was going to come back and play J. Jonah Jameson in the MCU. It was so great. Now, the problems that I have with this movie, the comedy sometimes is a little bit meh. Some of it is good, and then some of it just falls flat. And I didn't get to see Spider-Man quip a whole lot like I thought I was going to. But other than that, it didn't ruin the movie for me. Overall, this is the best Spider-Man movie. It captures what it means to be a hero and what it means to be human. It captures the relationships of becoming a true hero and stepping out of the shower and becoming your own true hero. It captures what it's like to be in a teen romance. It captures all these feelings. And for me, that's what makes it a good Spider-Man movies. And for this to have the best looking suit and the greatest action scenes in a Spider-Man movie and my favorite villain of all time in a Spider-Man movie, it's 10 out of 10 and it's number 1 on my list. So, I like to hear everyone's thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think about the movies. I want to hear you guys' personal opinions. Do you want to count Venom in your rankings, or do you just want to go with all 8 of the Spider-Man movies? Let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, and remember, always imagine bigger.